Our next guest have to be. You know, some people transcend why we know them. In other words, I'll give you an example. Muhammad Ali, what made him the greatest wasn't merely what he did in the ring, it's what he did outside of that ring that made him so great. You know, we're witnessing that with somebody like Will Smith now, who it's not just because of what he does on that big screen or what he did on that small screen. It's this messaging that he's putting out to the world right now to keep people motivated, and he's telling his secrets, you know, how he became successful. Our next guest, a lot of folks know him for his musical prowess and the award-winning, critically acclaimed, thought-provoking music legacy that he's created for himself and for hip-hop. He's played a substantial role in our evolution in hip-hop as a culture,
right?
Through his creative juices that have just really fueled the careers of many of the biggest names in the business today, from Teddy Pendergrass to Mary J. Blige to Donny Hathaway to Roberta Flack to the Notorious B.I.G. to Nas to Static Selector to Cameron to E40.
Wow.
The list goes on to Stephanie Mills. The list goes on and on and on, Heather B. And for quite some time, I'm friends with his son. I'm friends with his family. We've always talked about having him come up and just gracing us with his presence, and he's here and his knowledge and all the things he's done, not just in the studio, but outside the studio. The name of Kibulan is a name that I learned through his music from my mother playing Land of the Blacks, a Kibulan, an album that he did, and it empowering us. See, I told folks all the time, and I'm going to introduce our guests, that even when we were growing up in Oakland, and times were at their hardest in the 70s, and we were living on public assistance for a brief stint. It was the music and the messaging in the music that helped my mother and our parents kind of empower our kids to go, don't let this environment define you. There's so much more to it than that. And so I want to personally thank you for the music.
Oh, brothers.
Thank you for the messaging. Thank you for the movement that you've created throughout your career. The one and only James Mtume is here.
Thank you so much, man.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you
Come
so
on,
much.
man. Oh, man, good to have you. You looking real sharp right now. I swear you was out at the club last night the way you look right now. Wow, man. I want to talk about so much.
Yes, sir.
You know, where did you grow up?
I'm from Philadelphia, South Philadelphia.
South.
Born and raised. And I went to school in Pasadena, California. I went out there on a swimming scholarship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was training for the Olympics since '68.
Wow.
Since 68. You were that
in
good?
'68. Oh, yeah, I was that. I was that guy.
Oh, you was that guy?
Yeah, yeah.
A black man swimming?
Yeah, I was the first.
Breaking stereotypes.
I was the first black swimmer to ever win the Middle Atlantic AAU championship.
Really?
Yeah, no, I'm serious.
So you were Tiger Woods of golf. You were that of swimming, right?
No, Tiger. I was a puppy. Tiger's a tiger now.
Okay. And how did people look at you back then?
Strange, you know.
Okay.
Because, of course, I love ball. I tried the ball. And then one day my father came down and told me, broke my heart, man. He said, man, you know you ain't going to be tall. And I was like, he said, man, look, you need to start thinking about swimming. Because I had a natural gift, but, you had to really put the work in. I always tell people the two hardest things that I've ever done was boxing and swimming. Swimming is the only sport that you have to go through a foreign element. What do I mean by that? Everything else you do in air. Swimming, you got to go through water.
You got to go through water.
So it's a highly technical, art form, actually. Sports, that's an art form.
Boxing. When was the boxing?
Oh, come on, man. I'm from Philly, man.
Okay, all right. Yeah, a lot of famous boxers are from Philly.
Man. You had to do that.
What informed you musically at that time? When did you pick up the instrument?
Well, I had a very fortunate, upbringing. Like when my biological father is a great saxophonist named Jimmy Heath from the famous jazz family Heath Brothers, and the father that raised me was also a great jazz musician in Philly. He was a pianist named James Hengates Foreman. So I'm 9, 10 years old, man. So sometimes at dinner, there's Thelonious Monk.
Yeah.
There's Dizzy Gillespie. There's Sonny Rollins. You know what I mean? There's Miles Davis. So I grew up in that. But I was also about the funk, and Motown was happening then. Our hero back then was Frankie Lyman.
Frankie Lyman.
Wow.
Why do fools fall in love?
Why do fools
Right.
fall in love?
Right.
You saw Halle Berry and Lorenz Tate do the movie.
saw it,
Okay. Wow. So that was your hero. What did y'all talk about? Like, what did they talk about at the table? Because, you know, like when we get together now, we talk about what's going on in politics and this trickery that we're seeing and how policy is going to affect the community if we don't get active. What did y'all talk about?
Well, I'm not even going to sit here and pretend that I was that hip. I'm saying, man, I was 10. I mean,
Okay.
But I just knew this was the deepest things, conversations, man,
Yeah.
when they would talk about sound.
Sounds.
You dig?
Yeah.
So I grew up conceptually already open. And then when I joined Miles Davis, that was my mentor, man. So people ask me where'd I go to school. I say MD University. You know?
Miles Davis.
Miles, man.
What was Miles? Obviously defied rules when it came to sound. Was he cognizant of that? Was that the agenda back
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was the goal. That was the goal. Just give you a couple of things that he would tell, you know, because we talked all the time. I'm an insomniac, and so was he. So 2, 3 in the morning, we 4 o'clock, we on the phone, and he would tell me things like, when you go over a bridge,
Yeah.
burn it. Meaning, when you make one musical accomplishment, burn it, so you can't go back. If you ain't got no rear view mirror, all you can do is go forward.
And that's in sound.
And that's in sound. See, one of the things that's interesting about music, more than any other art form, music is the only art form that touches you, but you can't touch it. Now, what does that mean? I can touch a book of poetry. I can touch a piece of sculpture. Okay? How do I touch a B flat minor 7? Sound touches you. You can't touch it.
You can't touch it.
See, and I think that has something to do with when people say, you know, music is a special thing.
Yeah.
No, music is the only art form that does that. Sound touches you. You can't touch it.
Sound touches you. You can't touch it. Music started to change too. A lot of people were making music on different signatures. The 3/4 signature, the 4/4 signature.
Yes, sir.
4/4 being first, right?
Yeah.
Can you break that down? But when did that change start to happen?
Well, 4/4, so people know. Now, when did that make the real change was a cat named Dave Brubeck.
Okay.
He came on with a song called Take 5. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, other people were doing it, but he made it a hit. And it was a big hit. And then people started experimenting with you know, time signature. We call it time signature.
Time signature.
Yeah.
Listen to that.
You dig?
Yeah.
Man, I like being up here, man.
What do you mean? We just started.
Y'all hip, man. Yeah.
Okay, so how did that? Okay, and at that time, what was R&B at that time?
R&B, when I'm coming along as a young man, R&B was like Fats Domino.
Okay.
You know, Lil Richard. You know, those were the cats that was leading the thing. And then a guy named Pat Boone came along, and he was a white singer. And what he did, every Little Richard hit, he did a remake.
Yeah.
So Little Richard go, wop, bop, loo, bop, wop, bam, boom. Then Pat would come, wop, bop, loo, bop, wop, bam. And he sell 40 million, Richard selling, you know, just the black radio, because we couldn't get played on white stations back then, you know, and but that's how it is, man, and it's always been like that. When Elvis comes out, Elvis came right out of the black church,
Yeah.
you know, and Elvis was a hell of a gospel singer, you know, but he came out of the black church. It's black music. Black music has spawned everything. The sad part now is everybody takes, and we forgot it's ours.
Yeah.
Like I said, right now we get on the back of our own bus.
We on the back of. Well, two things. We talk about this couple things. First of all, with the black-white conversation earlier today, we were talking about a comment that Matthew Knowles said about, and not taking away from his child's talent, but that in the music business, if she wasn't so light-skinned, she wouldn't have been as successful in terms of Beyonce. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm only pausing because it touches on a. There's a song I was going to write once, but I never finished it. It's called The Unfairest Will. But it's a double entendre. Mm-hmm. Life is unfair, but also with us, you're fair-skinned or what? And being light has always been something helpful, And remember, what year was it when, excuse me, I'm just a little hoarse.
No, take your time.
And I'm excited.
Alicia Keys and India Arie.
And India Arie. They were both up for like 7 awards. Mm-hmm. Okay, what did Arie walked away with? Nothing. Mm-hmm. This is how this world is.
And
man.
not to take away from Alicia Keys.
No, we're not.
At all.
No.
Yeah, or Beyonce for that.
No, none of them. None. But that's how that works. And what's different now, brother, that's a great point you raised. See, what's different now, young people, especially young black people, they don't have the originals to look to. Like, like I said, I could hear Pat Boone, but I knew Little Richard. I could hear a white band doing R&B, but we had Sly. I heard another guy sing, but we had Al Green. Now, there's something I always say. Whoever controls the image controls the definition. And right now, through videos, the definition of black music is being altered.
Heather and I talk about this a lot, and what we're starting to witness when Jay-Z walked away from the Grammys and didn't win one Grammy. Heather always says this.
That people are trying to chip away at your legacy by not giving you the recognition of it. I say that to you because you being the originator of Juicy Fruit, and we didn't know. I knew of the song because I'm from the '70s. I remember my mom and dad playing that and frying chicken.
Right.
But hearing Juicy, Biggie, what did you feel when you first heard it in this young version of these kids running around singing your song?
Well, I remember the moment. I had a meeting with Andre Harrell. I was composing all the music for television, New York Undercover.
Oh, New York Undercover.
Well, I want to talk about that too, separately. Okay.
He skipped over it real fast.
Right? We're going to come back to that. Just let you know we're going to come back to that.
So Andre said, yo, Puffy wants to talk to you. So after the meeting, Puffy came in. He said, Tunes, look, I got this young artist named Biggie. So Biggie came in. We hugged. Sweetheart, man, I always say. And so Puff said, I want to sample Juicy Fruit. And I said, cool. And everywhere I go, I always make this point. Puffy and I worked it out, a page and a half. I said, you get $1, I get 50 cents. Now, why was that deep? Because back then, a lot of the cats who was creating the music wasn't getting paid. And matter of fact, there was a song written about me called, was it Talking All That Jazz?
Talking All That Jazz.
I'm gonna knock you out. No, that was written about me because they heard an interview that I did on Kiss, and I was just talking about that fact. I said, man, if you're gonna use somebody's music, you gotta pay them, or put your own music on it. It's like if I took your rap and put it on top of my song, that don't make it my song. That's our song. And so Puff was straight up. I always make that point, man. It was cool.
It was interesting because I remember Biz Markie sampled Gilbert O'Sullivan, wasn't it? Gilbert O'Sullivan on the song Alone Again Naturally. Biz Markie sampled it, and that was a big
game changer
in the music business about the early 90s.
That's right.
Because a couple of things. He sampled it, and then they took to court, and it was a big to-do. But even then, at that time, a lot of the originators, because they didn't get paid for a lot of the music that was being used, didn't like when it was being sampled. And a lot of the originators felt like rap was this art, wasn't even an art form. What were your thoughts? Because the rappers and the producers at that time they didn't have instruments in schools. They didn't, we worked with drum machines and stuff.
Right.
We were very good with what we were doing.
Correct. Now I was fortunate. My son Fa.
Yeah.
When he was coming up, he was hip hop. They had break dancers in the house and all that.
Yeah.
And I remember he brought a record home. And I was thinking, maybe I'm listening to John Coltrane or something, And it was ding, 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 ding.
The bridge is over.
Right.
The bridge is over.
And look, I said, man, turn that off. It's out of tune. and wait a minute. And so he said, no, man, this is Boogie Down Production. So the reason I bring that up is that he made me start having to listen differently.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it was about. Now, it's a whole nother part of this conversation.
Right, listen to this. Listen to this.
I don't. Oh!
That's how it's over.
The bridge is over.
Oh!
The bridge is over.
The bridge is over. Got real up. And that was out of tune.
Nothing now.
Yeah.
You know, you have to adjust your ears.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like how a lot of people couldn't hear jazz. Oh, that's a bunch of noise. No, man, that's like. But I had, as a whole head, I had to adjust. The one thing I've never been afraid of is embracing change.
Yeah.
You know, and the other point I wanted to bring up that was happening around the same time you were talking about the rap. There was a breakdown in the cultural continuity in Black America, especially with older blacks and younger blacks.
Yes.
So you had older blacks talk about that ain't no music, you know, and you had somebody, who's that guy drove over the CDs with a bulldozer?
Oh, yeah, that was...
Reverend somebody.
Reverend Calvin Butts.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So this tension, and I've always made it a point to tell people, your children and your nephews and your nieces, they're your mirrors. So if you don't like what you see, there's something wrong with you. My generation didn't finish the struggle. I'm a child of the '60s.
Your generation did not finish the struggle.
Didn't finish it. Didn't finish it. No. We got to the 11th round and got tired.
I always thought it as...
And we blamed. I'm sorry. My point is, and then we would blame y'all.
Blamed us.
Yeah.
When we blamed the system because when I was listening to Akibulan, you know, Land of the Blacks, right?
Yes, sir.
But I was getting information from my mother, you know, at that time too, and my older sister too.
Was your mother a Panther?
I don't want to talk about
Okay.
that. Okay.
No, I ain't talking about your mother. Yeah,
Okay.
but she had political affiliations.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
I just
All right.
rephrased it. Okay.
Afraid. Don't be setting me
The
up,
first
man.
time I heard you say that shit.
Sway thought he was being interviewed. He backed right out of that. Now you see how people feel sitting in this seat, Sway.
No, listen. You know, I grew up in Oakland.
Right. That's
Everybody, you know,
Right.
had some consciousness going
Yes,
on.
sir.
And we were taught the music was how we communicated. In the Kibulan, the original, you know, in Africa, if you will, is how we communicated on the ships. It's how we communicated on the plantations. It's how we communicated in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then rap came and revolutionized the business. And this whole separation through generations was diabolical. So I sat down with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and Prince and had a conversation, and Rich Nice, a friend of ours, and had a conversation about what you're saying now. We felt like when Master P became huge or Dr. Dre and these guys came huge, that we weren't getting the proper tutelage about the business as we could have from the guys who were already there because of that separation.
There was a lot of pain involved too.
Yeah.
A lot of people from my generation felt like they were being forced out of the business that they helped create. Because now it was like, I remember I heard a rapper saying, "Oh man, that R&B thing ain't nothing," and he was sampling. The record he was sampling was Funkadelic, Me, Myself, and I. And one other thing I wanted to add to you, just so we cover this about the sampling. The cat you named was it, but also it was when De La Soul sampled Opay. Oh, I like that.
Come on, man. We here
Yeah.
with you. Go ahead. Talk your stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When they sampled Opay by Steely Dan. That's when, see, as long as the black writers were being sampled, because I'm going to tell you somebody who also didn't get paid. James Brown.
James. Okay, I was gonna walk you to James.
Yeah, well, I'll run to that.
You'll run to James. So you saying when Steely Dan was sampled that and it became a white issue,
Then that's when they paid attention.
and that's when the industry started coming down, focusing
Yeah.
on hip hop.
Fugees did Killing Me Softly.
Yeah.
Now it's a different game.
Yeah.
When it was James, nobody cared. Okay? It was like, well, that's over there. You know, and in a way, it's still like that, brother. You know, and we're having conversations that I'm so glad to be here because there's not enough of this kind of dialogue.
Well,
man.
see, the reason why I bring it up because I know history repeats itself, and a lot of the
No, that's not true.
Okay.
History doesn't repeat itself. People repeat history.
Okay, people repeat history. Thank you. I'll tell you,
Once it's gone, it's gone. No, it's people.
People repeat history, and you see this cycle now that we're seeing in. Here's the irony: we see this in hip hop now.
Yep.
Now you got older hip hop
Right.
artists that are looking at the younger artists and saying that's trash.
Why you sampling my music?
Why you sampling my music?
Now, you know what?
You know what I mean?
That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at this. Why in the hell is 40-year-old rappers, some older than that, dogging 17-year-old kids? Those are your nephews, okay? What happened with rap? Now, I'm an old head,
Yeah.
but one thing I did notice, a lot of rappers develop what I call the Peter Pan syndrome.
Talk about that.
You never think you was gonna get old. Everything was fly, blah, blah. Then when you started getting old, you forget there's another generation coming under you. And you didn't deal with a lot of, there was a point in rap where I felt it was weird because it wasn't enough critique of people's music. They're always great because so-and-so put it out. So people got connected with a brand.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn about your brand. Is your music good? And it was like, it must be good because it's so-and-so.
Yeah.
No, man, no.
So it doesn't mean because you're the top selling artist yesterday that the song you made today is good.
Right. I ain't got nothing to do with it.
What advice would you give to us today when we separate ourselves the same way it was done to us back then? We're doing it to ourselves now. What advice would you give to the older guys?
Embrace the new. Okay? Because if you can't hear it now, then you still got it to get. You got to embrace whatever's coming because each generation creates music that addresses its culture. And culture evolves. You know, what's new today is old tomorrow. But one of the differences now, so much information is available, something gets old real quick.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a wonderful time for an artist to come along because now, you know, when we came along, it was about the radio. If you weren't on the radio, you wasn't on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all got the advantage now, a young artist, create something, press play, and it's all over the world.
It's all over the world. You don't need the middleman.
No.
James Mtume, legendary, is here today with us. If you want to talk with him, 888-742-3345.
So you know what? I think it would be good to receive some guidance on how do you find a balance between critiquing and embracing, because sometimes like a younger generation can be propelling a culture of drug usage and it's about glorifying that. But if that's the takeover, if that's the sound of the time, should we just embrace it because the youth is doing it when it could also be hurting them and the wider community?
That's a great point. We also have to understand, don't look at the puppet, look at the puppeteer. And it's the business that's the puppeteer. They perpetuate that.
Wait, can we let that breathe for a second? Let that breathe for a second. Don't look at the puppet. Look at the puppeteer.
Geppetto.
Who that?
Geppetto was the master puppeteer who
Okay.
had Pinocchio.
See, I learned something.
Geppetto built Pinocchio.
Yeah, Geppetto built Pinocchio.
But you dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So a lot of times we'll focus on something and we think we're looking at the thing. No, the thing is over here.
So then in this case of so many independent artists, where I think years ago we could say that the labels were the puppeteer, but if a lot of the youth are independent doing it by themselves, who do you think is the puppeteer now?
Society. I need to explain that a little better. You're very smart. I didn't say it as fully as I should have. We were talking earlier about music, and back in the 60s and 70s, it was music that was political. I'm black and I'm proud. We're a winner. Keep on pushing. That grows out of political movements. And political movements grow out of times. So I always say society is a thermostat. It sets the temperature. Okay? We're thermometers as artists. We only reflect it. So you got to, society at some point will set a thermostat that's got a higher temperature. And when it comes, it's going to come with political movements. One of the things that this generation, I mean, I love Black Lives Matter. You know, but it's not enough political movements. Once that starts to happen, sister, you'll see a whole new change.
True.
Would you it's obviously not the same thing because it's not the same times, but when you were a member of the US organization, the climate then and what you were fighting for then, how similar, what are the parallels to Black Lives Matter, would you say?
I look at it this, I look at it this, my parents was civil rights was the generation of social disobedience. 60s was the generation of social disruption. Y'all now are the generation of social information.
Social information.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
James and Mtume is here. Have to jump in there, Gary. Get in there, man.
We had a question,
I was having this conversation the other day about
Yes, sir.
Obviously because budgets aren't what they were, artists aren't getting paid what they were, and they're not inclined to put out physical copies of their music like albums and CD singles and things like that. And I feel that in turn diminished people's appreciation for music as a whole. You know what I mean? You don't have the liner notes in front of you. You don't have a limited edition pressing. You don't have a collector's edition. So people are just taking it for granted, like, oh, just put out your music and I'll, download it or whatever. And it's not as much as us looking forward to actually going to the store and buying it when it came out. So do you think that has any...
Well, that's a very important point. Something happened along the way, Sway, where people stopped talking about music and they started talking about product. If you went, record, we need more product. Man, music ain't product. Music is vision, man. You dig? So when you start looking at it like you selling shoestrings, you know what I mean? That's product. And you lose the value. Another thing I do try to bring up, there was also a point where every black record that came out had to have a remix. Why? What's the remixes on the Rolling Stones? What's the remixes on the Beatles?
I'm dying.
What was that about, though? What was the logic behind that, though?
Because what it did psychologically, it devalues the original creation.
Wow.
Ain't nobody gonna do no spray paint on no Van Gogh.
Legacy.
But every black record, a remix. Then you had a remix of the remix before the other remix. So you don't have a value for the actual creation.
It was a time when you turned in the music, you had to turn in the remix alongside. They already had the remix ready for when you dropped the single in the 90s, which isn't that long ago.
No, it ain't that long. That's when it happened.
But what about extended plays? Because there was time when they would release like 12 inches where it would be a longer version.
Yeah, I was there. But the 12-inch, like, to take Juicy Fruit, the 12-inch, what you did was just extend the song. I'm talking about remixes where you change the actual music. And a lot of these cats that was doing remixes didn't know nothing about music. I almost punched a cat upside his head. He did a record. The record company gave him a record to remix. And I said, man, this is not even the right chords.
Yeah.
And those usually were club DJs back then in the 90s.
When you made Juicy Fruit, how did you...
How I get it through?
How did you build it? What came first? The drum? That was first?
Yeah.
Let's hear that. James and Mtume is here.
Yeah.
You know the part I'm waiting for. What year was this?
1983.
Here we go.
I need it. Oh, girl.
Who made that? Ooh. that's you?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I wrote it, but that is.
Very well what you are. You're my sugar thing, my chocolate star. I've had a few, but not that many. But you're the only
DJ
love
Wonder.
that gives me good.
It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine. Hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack Mr. Magic Molly Mall. I let my tape rock till my tape pop. Smoking weed and bamboo, sipping on private stock. Way back when I had the red and black lumberjack with the hat to match. Remember rapping, Duke? The hard. You never thought that hip hop would take it this far. Now I'm in the limelight cause I rhyme tight. Time to get paid, blow up like the world trade. The opposite of a winner. Remember when I used to eat sardines for dinner? Peace to Ron G, Brucey B, Kid Capri, Funk Master Flex, Love Buzz, Starsky. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. Call a crib, same number, same hood. It's all good.
Now, did you know,
Very well.
those who are tuned in right now, we have the originator, the creator. There would not be that song if it wasn't for this man's song. James Mtume is here. Round of applause.
You know what, Mr. Ntume, I'd like to ask you, since we were talking about the new, we don't often get a chance to hear new artists talk about their experiences in the studio working with other people. Since you have, the list of people, I'm just in shock. What was like the most fascinating, even for you as an artist, when you as a person in the studio, you just had to pinch yourself when you were in the studio with them?
I'll give you this story, and this is always I always tell people, this is the most touching thing that I've experienced. When I was doing Donnie and Roberta Back Together Again, there was a song after, Closer, and then we did Back Together Again. Donnie was having some emotional challenges, so in the middle of the song, Donnie couldn't finish, and he just ran out the studio. Oh man, y'all gotta stop that, man! You make an old man cry up in here, man. And he ran into the bathroom, so I got up and went in the bathroom behind him, and he was crying. I mean, just sobbing, man. And I said, Donnie, what's up, man? He said, man, Tunes, they're trying to kill me. He said, they got my brain hooked up to a machine. So now he's crying, now I'm crying. I told Donnie, that's all right. This was it was Saturday night. I said, man, we'll be back Monday, man. We're going to tear it up. He said, yeah, right, cool. About 5:30 that morning, Sunday morning, the phone rings. And for black people, 5:30 in the morning on Sunday.
Yeah.
Not a good time.
And I pick it up, and there's somebody crying. I said, well, who's this? She said, it's Roberta. She said, Tunes, Donnie's dead. Killed herself that night. So I didn't mean to bring it down, but there's nothing, no experience. And then the thing, I get touched because I think about, for me, Donny Hathaway was a singer, and I'm angry because he's just a footnote now. Yeah. But the last two songs he did were two songs that I did.
Really?
Close I Get to You and Back Together Again.
Wow. We're going to open up the phone lines.
Yes, sir.
I want people to talk to you. James Mtume is here. 888-742-3345. Rest in peace.
The closer I get to you.
James Mtume is here. Producer of that beautiful song. Songwriter, radio personality too. Don't forget, we was in competition. I got to take some of these phone calls and a couple of things
sir.
I want to we only got so much time, but you're gonna have to come back obviously and do a part two. We got let me see, Toronto. We're gonna go to Toronto. Stone, what up, man?
Hey, what's going on, Sway? What's up, everybody?
How you doing? Say hello to James Mtume.
Yeah, Mr. Tume, man, you're a legend in the game, man. I feel like I'm in university right now.
Thank you, brother. You're very kind.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I once heard that Earth, Wind, and Fire was the most sampled group of all time, and they asked them about it, and they liked the fact that people are sampling their music because it lives on forever. So I'm just curious to know what you kind of think about that.
Well, I think I can only speak for myself, obviously. The thing that I'm most honored about is that once Biggie picked up on Juicy, it took it into the next generation. But we know we've been very fortunate because, Nas has sampled
One Love.
One Love,
Black, what's up?
Black Girl Lost,
Yeah.
and
You want me to name a few?
yeah,
I got a list of them. Hey, Stone, I'm gonna tell you a bunch of samples that have come from directly or indirectly from this man, and we gather a list, and it's a long list.
Wow.
All right, Juicy Fruit was sampled by the Notorious B.I.G. That's obviously with Total. Common did something.
You mean he?
Huh?
You, me, and he.
Yeah, you, me, and he. Okay.
This cat.
Here we go. Yeah. Go with it, DJ Wonder. Sway in the morning. Let me see. I'm just gonna name names: DMX, Aaliyah, Nate Dogg, Warren G, Sauce Money, Jay-Z. Let me see. Cameron, Action Bronson. Strictly for my Jeeps. You just recently worked with our good friend, colleague, co-worker, who has one of the dopest hip hop. I ain't even gonna put just hip hop albums that I listen to currently right now. Static Selector.
Oh yes.
And you guys just work together.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
We met Static. Well, as a matter of fact, the storyline is this. I'm getting ready to go back in the studio to produce Tawatha Ag, our lead singer, on all the stuff that we did. That's the voice. And so Static had called her about something else, so I went out there with her. And Static says, I'm talking, and Static says, he said, oh, yeah, Juicy, I know. And he knew all of it. He knows all the stuff. Then he said, wait a minute, but your voice sounds familiar. He pulled out Al Cable Line. And said, it had, because I had to do that little invocation in the front. And I said, man, what are you doing with this, man? That's when I knew the cat was really into the music.
Yeah.
So, I'm getting together. There's another brilliant young musician, Brother O'Haney, is going to be working with us. And some other young...
O'Haney Savant?
That's the only one I know.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been on the show.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I've been dealing with O'Haney in 10, 15 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Far you be holding out.
So he's going to be helping to coordinate it because I want young writers. Like I always say, always good to know what you do. More importantly, what you don't do. So I know there's a new sound. I know how to produce songs. I know how to produce vocals. So I'll be the guy, like I said, I'll just be putting the cherries on it.
The song was Static Selected that's on the 8 album is But You Don't Hear Me Though.
Yeah.
I've never told.
Hey, man, the language, bro.
Motherfucker, this ain't back in the day. Static, what up? LOX in this joint. This ain't back in the day. Yeah. Motherfucker, this ain't back in the day. This ain't back in the day. Back in the day. But you don't hear me.
Yo, you brought up the Heath Brothers, and it was the song Smiling Billy Sweet Part 2. See, we're crate diggers here at Sway in the Morning. You can go a lot of places, but ain't no place like this. Dre Harrell.
Right.
I don't know Dick Wolf,
Right.
All right. Why was that revolutionary, in your opinion? Because we didn't see a lot of people of color,
right.
Number one, in that position doing what you were doing. And in the end, what happened? Because it seemed like there was a breakup or some disruption that was happening with New York Undercover. What happened with Andre Harrell? Like, who was there in the beginning and who was there in the end? You said I could ask you anything.
Hey, I'm gonna answer. I just gotta collect myself. I gotta collect myself.
I got you back from that question about my mama.
Yeah.
Tell the truth.
The reason why I think the show was so successful was because nothing like that had ever been seen.
Okay.
And it was real. Taking place in New York, real stories. Now, what happened? The critics from the TV station, they really didn't want it. So they were just hassling and every day. And then they decided to change the whole show. I think it was in the 4th year.
Yeah.
And I was so pissed. I said, well, man, take my theme off. I'll write another theme because this thing ain't got nothing to do with what I'm writing, you know? And I think I started to see the decomposition of it when the second season, Malik and Michael, they went on strike. The day before the show was supposed to shoot. And they didn't tell anybody.
Why were they on strike?
Well, they wanted some more money, and they had a list of things. And the only reason I can tell you this, because I was in California, and they called me. And I was saying, well, you went on strike, man. I think y'all should have said something to let them know what's happening. But they didn't. And then they asked me, would I be the go-between between them and Dick Wolf, which I agreed to. I love both of them cats, man. But I think in Dick's mind, I think that the deal was sealed. So he waited till the next season, and on the last episode, Michael gets in the car and blows up. Now the deep part is,
well, his character blew up.
No. Yeah. Right.
Mike's still with us. Mike, what up, baby?
Right. And to show you how cold it was, he didn't know that was going to happen until the read-through. They were sitting around the table like this, going through the read, like as they did every week. And then he gets to the last page. Said, man, Michael goes in the car, they hug, boom. And that's how he got out.
So they wrote him out the script. What happened with Andre Harrell?
Again, I'm going to preface this.
Okay.
I love Andre. Andre brought me in. And Dick never wanted me because he had his man Mike Post, who did all his music. So Andre fought for me, and I always thank him for that. I think Andre should have been around a lot more. And I think he let Dick Wolf pretty much take over the show because they were co-executive producers.
Yeah, I remember that. That's why we watched, because Andre Harrell, we didn't know who Dick Wolf was. It was Andre Harrell that brought us there.
But I think Andre, because Andre's state was here on the East Coast. Dick's out there on the West Coast. I'm going back and forth to the West Coast because I'm doing the music and, back and forth. But I think Andre, if he were here, I think he'd agree. He should have stayed a little more on top of it.
Did Dick push him out?
This is not a silence of I'm scared. I'm saying, did he push him out? It's hard to say he pushed him out. If you
know what I mean. You can make it difficult for him.
Yeah, but if you got the door open.
Okay.
You should have been there. You should have been there, man. And it was a couple of promises that I found out later talking to Dick, because he and I got real cool after the first season. I think there was some money issues.
Okay.
Then they were supposed to co-executive producers, co-checks. And that didn't come through the way it was supposed to. And that's what I got from Dick. And I've never talked to Andre about it, but it was pretty much confirmed because other people told me about that.
Isn't it just hearing all of this about this one show that had, at that time, 2 male leads of color, which was non-existent at that time, going through all those issues. And you see,
a single father take care of his kid.
Yeah, exactly. A single father taking care of his kid. These were all issues that we knew, we were aware of. And then you fast forward to 2018 and you see people like Shonda, you see people like Issa, you see people like Ava, you see Ryan, all these people producing these amazing series. Tyler Perry. Yeah. All these people making this people color. And
there was 2 other people that were very much involved. Alonzo Brown, and a sister named Laya LaFleur. She worked with me because one of the things that I wanted to do when the show was first conceived, Natalie's, that club, it was just a place where the cats would go and hang. Now, this show starts in 94, 95. 94, Arsenio Hall's taken off the air. There was no place to see black artists.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what would be cool? We'll take a young artist, have them redo a classic. Go Mary J. Blige, Natural Woman, 112, After the Love Is Gone. And then I said, we'll bring in established artists and redo one of their hits. B.B. King, the Thriller's gone. James Brown, It's a Man's World. Isley Brothers. Roberta Flack.
Yeah.
Ashford Simpson. So that way the thing didn't turn into Soul Train, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. And what I was really gassed with, a lot of people told me years later, he said, man, a lot of times we tune in, man, to see who was at Natalie's.
Yeah. Waited for the end of the show. Let's see who was going to come on.
I mean, Al Green, Gerald Levert, all of them.
You feel like it's better now? I'm named all Ava, Shonda Rhimes, all these different folks who are succeeding. You think it's better now? The balance, the scale is balanced? It ain't where it need to be. It's not, but is it balancing out?
It'll never, absolutely, much better.
Okay.
But it'll never be what it should be until we own something.
Why?
See?
Give me that round of applause. Man.
I mean,
Yeah, man. I'm tired. You tired of working for somebody
yeah,
else?
man. It's like, I remember, it was a movie I dug. People have different opinions on it. Django.
Yes.
I screamed when I saw him whip that man with that. I had never seen no brother whip no white man on a movie.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would talk about, it wasn't. It was a downer. It was a black movie. It's not really historical. Well, first of all, it's not a history. It was a story.
Yeah. Right.
And I got so mad. A lot of the black directors. I said, man, then do your own. Well, I'm past the point of what white people or any other people don't do for us.
Absolutely.
We got enough money, man.
We do have enough. We're the biggest spending demographic in the world.
We just don't spend on us.
We don't spend on us.
Yeah, but it'll never be right until you have your own, man. If you got your own house, can't nobody just put you out. If you renting, you got a problem.
James and Mtume, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, man.
You like that 5 fingers?
That was a nice 5 fingers right there, baby. Man, Lord Sirius up next, so we gotta
get out.
We gotta get out.
Renting.
Are you on social media?
I don't know.
Fi? Listen, hit them up. James and Mtume, Mtume, online.
Amazing.
Man, continue the education, man.
Man, thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed your time.
Man,
as much as we did.
I loved it, man. We got to do this again.
Okay, absolutely.
Same cast.
Absolutely. There's a few things we didn't get to.
Okay.
All right? Okay, man.
It's Sway in the morning, only
on Shea 45.